Hey, in this video, I'm gonna introduce you to DevBoss, that is an open source AI agent orchestration framework developed to do end-to-end software development for you. You might have already used Codex or Cloud Code, but DevBoss is a bit different. Instead of letting you focus on one task at hand, DevBoss flips the equation and allows you to focus on the bigger picture so that you set the vision for the whole project, create the tasks that are to be done, and then DevBoss will actually pick up that task and assign it to various different types of agents that we'll define and get the end-to-end software development done for you. So it can design, build, write test cases, do the manual testing, and it can also take care of the deployment for you. So in this video, I'm going to talk about three things. We'll do the DevBoss setup, then we'll talk about some terminologies related to DevBoss, and at the end, I'll show you a quick demo of a small task, and we'll understand the working of DevBoss. So let's begin with the setup. You can visit the website devboss.xyz and click on this View GitHub Repo button to start with the setup. Just scroll down, and in this section, it will tell you what you already need to have. So you need to have Docker Desktop installed on your system. Once you have Docker installed, then you can follow the local setup instructions given here. So what I'll do is I'll clone this repo. So let's begin. So here I have created a directory on desktop. I'll just paste the commands here. So it will clone the repo. And if I do pwd, now I am in this folder. If I do ls, I have all the files on the repo, and I have this environment.example file also. So what I'll do is I'll create a copy. So if you go back here, you can just copy this command, create the copy of this environment file, and it will give you an example environment or a sample environment to start with. Here you can see the example environment file that's given for you, but you don't need to copy this. Running this above command actually gives you this. Then you can start the stack by copying this command and running this. While it's doing the work, I'll explain what it's trying to do. It is trying to create a local Postgres database that will be used as persistent storage by DevBoss, and it will bring up the UI for the DevBoss, and it will bring up the backend APIs and the work engine for DevBoss. So it may take a couple of minutes. So once this is done, you will see something like images have been created, now containers are up and running. So in order to verify if the Docker container is up and running, what you can do is type docker ps, and this will output something like this. DevBoss frontend is running from last 22 seconds. DevBoss backend is also running, and DevBoss Postgres is also running. So if everything worked fine till this point, if you open localhost 3000, you should see something like this. Now let's talk about the terminologies used by DevBoss. Engineer in a DevBoss is actually defined by skills.md file, which is just a markdown file which is executed by Codex. As of now, DevBoss just supports Codex. I will launch support for Cloud Code in a couple of weeks. A project is just a GitHub repo with optional deployment config, but DevBoss has the capability to actually handle the deployment also. Then task is any action to be taken on the project. It may not just be a coding task. It may be something like, can you create documentation for this certain flow? Or if you want to ask how a certain thing is implemented in a large code base, you can actually ask that to DevBoss and it can actually explain you that. Then global config is actually the environment that passed to the engineer, defined by skillmd. And at last, sandbox is a Docker container inside which the agent will run. So once you have this ready, the first thing that you have to do is define the global configs. So by default, this screen will be empty. And if you jump back to the GitHub markdown file, here it will tell you that there are two required configurations that you have to pass. One is the codex auth JSON file, and other is GitHub developer token in order to access the code base. There are some optional global configurations that you can provide, but these are only used if you actually want to handle the deployment. So as of now, we just have AWS support for deployment with DevBoss. So you need to provide AWS access key, AWS secret, and AWS region. So let's create these. So in order to create these, I'll click on this add global config button and I'll copy over the name from here. So first one is codex auth JSON, and I'll copy over the value for this. So the value for this key is actually stored in auth.json file on your local computer if you have codex installed. So here I have created all the global configs that I need, and the two that are required are codex auth JSON and GitHub developer token. So let's now add a project. If you come to project screen, you'll have a couple of sample projects. You can actually go ahead and delete them. You don't need these. Now, in order to add a new project, you click on this button, give it a name. So I'll add the website of DevBoss, which is this website, as the project itself. So I'll paste the GitHub repo URL, define the main branch, and I'll set up some deployment configs, defining the key value pairs and some instructions for the deployment. But these are optional. You can skip them if you don't want to handle deployment. One thing that you'll notice in the deployment instruction is DevBoss doesn't need any CI/CD pipeline to be set up. You can just give the instructions in English about the tasks that you want to do while you want to do the deployment. So here it just says, build the project by running npm run build, upload the files in the output directory to AWS S3 bucket mentioned in the config, and invalidate the CloudFront cache for the given distribution ID. So I've given the distribution ID, which is the CDN for this website, and I have given the bucket name, which is devboss.xyz, where it has to upload the build or the static files for the website. So I'll just click on create project. And one thing more, these deployment configs, you can just leave it as empty JSON, and you can leave out these instructions if you don't want to handle deployment through DevBoss. So I'll just click on create project. Once you create the project, it will give you a dashboard. So if you open it up, this is something that you might have seen in a lot of project management tools. So now we can actually create a task, and then we will walk through what's actually happening when DevBoss is working through it. So let's do a very simple task. Let's say I want to change the color of this button to, let's say, red instead of black. So I'll go here, create task, and before doing this, we should also look at engineers. So if I go to engineers, there are a couple of engineer templates that are present here. You can also create your own template. So in order to create an engineer, just click on add a new engineer. You can give it a name. You can use a base template. And engineer is nothing but a skills markdown file. So essentially you can define what types of skills the engineer has and how to do certain kind of work. Uh, so essentially, it's consider it like a knowledge transfer when a new engineer joins your team. So I'll basically create a new engineer for DevBoss. So I'll call it DevBoss. Let's call it full stack engineer. I'll use backend engineer as the template. This has no meaning in this case. This will just define the base Docker file that will be picked up for creation of this engineer. And in the markdown, I'll just mention that you are an experienced full stack engineer with expertise in building end-to-end system with the following skills. And I have given the stack that is being used for this website. So I've written, you know how to work with Python, Fast API, React, Next.js, and this is all you need to actually get started. And you can just, okay, I'll just scroll it up. You can click on this Create Engineer button. So once you create the engineer, it will just show up here. Now, what you need to do is you need to run the environment for that engineer. So you can click on this green play button to launch your engineer. And the first time you launch the engineer, it will actually take a couple of minutes to launch it because it's actually building the Docker environment for that engineer and do the setup uh, in that Docker container. Okay, so if you see here now, it says healthy runtime heartbeat is current. So if you go back and now to Docker PS, you should see DevBoss Engineer 5. 5 is the index. So basically, this is the fifth engineer that we have created. And here you can see, okay, it's running healthy. So now we can actually go back to the project and create our first task. So let's understand the various stages here before we create the task. So by default, every task is created as a draft. Draft is when the human is working on that requirements or the ticket for the project. Uh, once you know, once you think you have written down all the requirements, you can give it to AI grooming, where the agent will read the task or read the requirements. Uh, it will check out the code base and it will make sure that it has everything in order to implement that task. And if there will be any gaps in the knowledge, it will actually comment on that ticket to ask for human feedback, or it will ask for more information before actually doing the task. Once AI grooming is complete, it will automatically move the task ticket to ready for build. This is where humans in loop are involved. You'll have to move the ticket manually from ready to build in progress. Once it is in progress, an AI agent will pick it up, do the work, and then once the task is done, it will give it to another agent to complete the testing. If there are any gaps identified in testing, or if something is not working correctly as per expectation, the AI testing agent will send it back to in progress with some feedback, and it will ask this agent to basically fix the things that it has identified. And this will at max go over in this loop for 3 times. And even let's say if the loop has run for 3 times and it is not able to fix the issue, which happens very rarely. Once the AI testing is done, it will send it for human testing. Here you'll have a separate Git branch that you can check out. Once you have done the testing, you can send it to ready to deploy. In ready to deploy, it will actually take that branch and raise a PR or a merge request to the default branch that we created on the project, and it will give you the PR link to actually merge that code base. Here again, human will be involved in loop. You'll have to go to that link and actually merge the PR by hand. Once you have merged the code, you can mark the ticket ready for deployment. It will do the deployment and send the ticket to archived state. So let's create a simple task here in order to understand the working. So we want to change the color of this button to red color. So I'll click on create task. I'll select my DevBoss full stack engineer here. I'll select the project. By default, it's DevBoss project. If I have multiple projects and I want to create tasks across projects, I can also do that. So I'll give the title, change the button color, the button on the main page in the hero fold is black in color. I want that button to be of red color shade. Don't use or we can say use some professional looking red shade. By default, the acceptance criteria is that these requirements should have been completed. If you have any additional acceptance criteria, you can edit this. You don't need to provide any implementation steps. The agent will figure it out. But if you have something very custom to your code base, you can actually give the requirements here. Also, in the implementation steps, there is no need to actually provide the steps here. Agent will automatically figure out in like 99% of the cases. So these are just here for completeness sake. And by default, every task, as I said, will go into draft stage. But if you think these requirements are good enough, you can actually send it to AI grooming. So I'll select AI grooming and I'll create the task. Now, once the task is done, you will see engineer 5 has been allocated this task. You can actually go inside the ticket and you'll see here that under task runs, AI grooming is currently running. It is yet not completed. And in the conversations, you can see anything that either the AI engineer wants to tell you, or you can also tell the AI engineer certain things. So we'll just wait here. So, okay, just now if you see for the task 11, change the button color outcome is grooming complete. And it will tell you the summary and scope of the change here. So task is ready to build, and it is actually defining that I'll change the globals.css for button styling, and it will make some changes. Now we need to click on this icon and approve build start. So if I click on this, you will see here, I'll move this one to the right. You will see here that now it's in progress running, and engineering runtime says here that it has claimed task 11, cleaned the workspace and checked out the repo and created a branch codex task 11, and this task is actually still running. So if we go back to the dashboard, you can see this task is in progress, and this is where the real power of DevBoss comes into picture. While the agent is doing its stuff, it may take like a couple of minutes for the thing to be completed. You can actually work on different task requirements. You can keep adding them. So let's also add another requirement. I want to create a secondary button here in order to get started with the video. So I want to upload this video to the YouTube that I'm recording right now and give a link to this video right here. So I'll go back, I'll create a new task, assign it to the DevBoss full stack engineer, add secondary button in the hero fold of the main page. I want to add another secondary button that will link to the YouTube video in order to get started with the dev boss setup and usage. The link to YouTube video should open up in the new tab. Okay, I'll assign this and I'll basically keep this in draft state for now so that we can go back and actually monitor what's happening here. So if I click here, so it has been running for a while and doing some work, basically implementing the code changes for us, and we should see some comments from the engineer runtime soon here. So yeah, we have it now, and it says build complete. On the left, you'll see that build has been done, and AI testing is pending. So if I go back here, you will see that ticket has actually moved from in progress to automatically AI testing. So let's wait for this AI testing to be done and to be moved to human testing. Should be done in like a couple of seconds, hopefully. Okay, so now the testing is done. You can actually read here that what was tested, and it basically said testing is complete. And if I go back to the dashboard, so this has been moved to human testing now. So before we move ahead with that ticket, I want to send this ticket for AI grooming. So I'll just go inside the ticket, click on this three dots, and I'll start the AI grooming here. And I want to check something because I have not given the actual link for the YouTube video here that it has to insert in that button. So I just want to check if it is able to identify that as a gap in the requirements. So let's see. We'll just wait here. Cool. Now, if you see the AI engineer runtime is not saying it's AI grooming complete. It's actually saying it needs human input. And if you read this, it says blocked reason is the required YouTube destination for the new hero secondary button is not specified. So I have asked it to add a button that will take us to the YouTube video, but I have not given it the link for the YouTube video. So it is asking for some input. So what I can tell it is you can use https youtube.com as the link now. We will update it later to the real video link. And once I post the reply here, you will see the status here changed to human replied, requeued for engineer execution. So basically, when I'm talking to the agent, it is actually taking that feedback from me, and it will incorporate that feedback while doing the task or understanding the requirements and in the AI grooming stage. So let's wait. And just to compare it to the existing software development work, this is what happens in a distributed team. So if you have a couple of product managers with the engineering team, they will generally kind of interact with each other on some ticket in your project management tool. And this is how it goes on as of now. So now we see that the grooming is actually complete. Task is ready for implementation. But before we send this task for implementation, let's go back and look at the human testing, the task in the human testing state. So if we come here, it is actually giving us this link to the branch, uh, but I trust it because the requirement were not very complex. So I'll just mark it ready to deploy. And if we go to task runs, it says ready to deploy pending. Now what will happen in ready to deploy is it will actually create us a merge request for this. Uh, so if we scroll down, it is actually working on creating that PR for us. And if you check here, It says PR not yet open. In just couple of minutes, it's actually gonna give us the link for the PR here. But while it's doing it, I'll tell you. So it has the capability to actually understand the changes that are in target branch, rebase our existing branch, and automatically resolve any kind of conflicts that are there. So it has that capability to do that. So now we have the uh, pull request here, and if I scroll up, so I have the PR ready here. So I'll just open it up. Actually, I paused the video in between so to log into my GitHub account. So I have the PR here. I can look at the changes. So I'll just go ahead and like merge this change, and I'll go back and I'll just start the deployment here. So if I go back, uh, now my task is in the deployment lane, and if I go down here in the task, I can see deployment is actually running, and an agent has actually picked it up and started working on it. So we'll just wait for the reply from this agent, and we'll then basically take it forward. Okay, so now the deployment is done, and it's actually telling us what it did here, and it's giving us the like the final URL. So I can go back to the website and like refresh it, and you see now the button is actually red in color. And if I go back to the dashboard, you will see that this task is like dev live, and it has been archived. Now actually I can go back and let's set this for built also. I'll just go back and sit here on the dashboard while it goes from build to AI testing to human testing, and we'll just look at it from the dashboard perspective. So it will actually automatically jump to various lanes while until it needs human input. So if you can see it, the ticket just went from in progress to AI testing state. Here it will be tested by the testing agent, and then if everything is fine, it will actually jump to human testing state. Uh, so let's wait. Cool. So if you see here, uh, it actually jumped to human testing, and like we have the branch here. I'll anyways go ahead and mark it like ready to deploy, and go back to the dashboard again and wait for it. So in ready to deploy, it will actually generate the uh, pull request here. If we go down, um, we can see it's working on generating that pull request. We'll just wait here. Cool. So if you see here, we finally have a pull request. So if I click on this pull request, I will actually see this. So I'll just merge the change here. Can also actually look at the changes that are done here. Something has been added, but anyways, I'll go ahead and mark this ticket start deployment, and I'll go back here and just wait for the deployment to be complete. So once the deployment is done, this ticket will actually move from deployment to archived state. So let's just wait for that. Cool. So just now it went from deployment to archive. So we can actually go back here and actually refresh the page, and you will see it has a link, or it has created the secondary button here. So if I click on this, it will open up youtube.com in a separate video. So anyways, so this was all for this video. We saw how to add like new projects, how to come to dashboards of that project and create like new tasks, and how the task moves from like one stage to another. We implemented couple of very simple tasks. You can actually install it and do the setup as I did and try even complex tasks. Uh, One thing I want to tell you is when the first version of DevBoss was ready, I actually added the DevBoss platform as a project to DevBoss. So DevBoss itself is managed within DevBoss for its software development needs. So it can actually do pretty complex things also, like writing the end-to-end sandboxing environment. Uh, so yeah, do try it out, and if you have any feedback, comments, feature requests, any suggestions, or any questions, you can comment on this video or connect with me on LinkedIn to send over the communication. Um, Thanks for watching this video.